MedTech engine definitely still humming. Over $500 million across 50 plus deals, couple M&A transactions. I think it's a really strong signal.
As part of our development, we are looking at adding scoring.
For those who are interested, again, like whether you're an investor or startup founder or CEO, you definitely need to be subscribed to Compass. It's extremely affordable for everything that you get.
These other companies to build robots because they make a lot of money on the consumable products.
Olympus committed an initial combined investment about $65 million, which escalated to about $458 million. The main reason is that like robotics is just like, it's really hard and it's really expensive.
You can't replace part of the brain. Like,
you treat them the same.
Source of truth for the medtech industry.
Coexists with the puppets.
Robot understands things automatically.
Number one show in the medtech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed in the $90 billion company. They had help up high, a lot of things.
State of MedTech with your host, Omar Khateeb.
We're back. Welcome back, everybody. This month in MedTech, yes, I know what you're thinking. Where did August go? Well, it's my fault, actually. I had a baby. There's that. And you know what? Like August, everybody's off on European summer anyway. So we figured we'll take two for the price of one today, combine both August and September, and give you the best and the latest this month in MedTech, courtesy of our trusted market intel team over at LSI, joined by the market intel czar himself, Nick Talamantes. Nick, good to see you.
Omar, it's good to see you as well. Congrats on the baby. Hopefully all is well. I'm sure it is. And yeah, it's good to be back.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. We'll see. We'll see about does the Khateeb family make a triumphant return with baby to LSI 26? We'll see. This year was the first time I went to LSI without the babies.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a little bit more manageable, but it was fun. I feel like, people got used to seeing my wife with a little baby around her, so I mean, that baby's big now. Our son's 3, but maybe she'll make an appearance for a day next year with the daughter. So
we joke, we just had another team member that had a kid. I have an 8-month-old. Might have to open a daycare with all of our kids.
Let me tell you,
we'll see what happens.
You should absolutely do that. It would be huge, and you should charge for that. Except for me, because I came up with the idea. So you're not charging, but you should. I'll tell you, there's a lot of parents that would like immediately take that up, because I think a lot of people want to bring their spouse to LSI. Yeah. But there's this concern, like, what do we do with the kids and everything? But you have an LSI daycare.
You might be onto something.
I vote yes. I yes on that.
I'll have to pass it along. I do also have some news for you. I know that for the longest time, you kind of held the record for youngest LSI attendee at the event. And I have to say,
was my son dethroned? Who's the new king or queen?
His name was Leon. He was 3 weeks old. So I do think that is
whose kid is that?
Record. Yeah, he was so cute and adorable and slept the whole time. It's like,
wait, whose kid is that?
I'm totally blanking. He was one of our presenters, though. I'll have to follow up. Give a shout out to him. But
when I got to talk to my wife, man, I might just have to make another baby with my wife, so that way I can have a fresh 2-week-old newborn at LSI next year. I'm going to talk to my wife about that now. That's unacceptable.
Start planning.
I'm going to start, like literally, I think we got to start, I'm going to tell him like, hey, look, I know we just had this kid, but like, look, records need to be upheld.
That's right.
All right. Well, let's get into it. So let's start off with the first part, starting off with August sort of rapid fire highlights. Quick pulse check on the Q2 activities. These numbers do not lie. MedTech engine definitely still humming. Over $500 million, $500 million across 50 plus deals, couple M&A transactions. I think it's a really strong signal despite some market headwinds. Nick, give us your take on it.
Yeah, it's interesting since we're kind of combining the August and September overlook here. It's like, oh wow, Q2 was amazing. And then in a little bit, when we jump to September, it's like things might be cooling off a little bit. But overall, Q2 ended strong. I know we're going to talk Q3 more in depth, especially when we start getting some of the Q3 earnings calls from the major players in the industry. But great Q2 so far. Love to see it, and hope that we're just seeing like a little bit of a slowdown for the fall. Maybe the investors also took off the late summer like we did for this month in MedTech, and we'll start to see the deal volume pick up again. So I think when we kind of go through things here on our little outline, lots to talk about in terms of M&A, and I think that's where we're going to spend a lot of this episode is in the M&A world.
Yeah. And, you guys had this nice LSI Hot 25 MedTech startups, a really nice list. And the ones that top, were at the top. And just to understand, before I share the three that kind of came up on top, how do you guys determine the three that you highlighted?
Yeah, that's a great question. So kind of back in the behind the scenes, maybe not behind the scenes, we do develop a product here at LSI called Compass. It's a market intelligence solution for following the emerging growth stage companies in our industry.
We use that on our end. I love that product.
Yeah. So as part of our development of it, we are looking at adding scoring. And, you see this on like a Crunchbase, basically a metric that says how hot a company is. We're working on we're going to need to workshop that name a bit. I'm going to have to take it up with the marketing team. The Hot 25 list sounds like something from a tabloid magazine, but we'll adjust the name and be able to share our picks and our rankings for companies in the industry. So, yes, the question, what is it? We're basically looking at several different metrics to evaluate and score companies based off of their fundraising activity, the tech differentiation, how do they compare to their competitors in the industry, if there are any, the market opportunity. So, man, you may have a really cool idea, but it's a small market opportunity or it's a big one, and that will adjust the score as well. And then other variables like the personnel at the company, are they seasoned veterans, who their investors are. We're kind of taking all of these things, we score them, run it through an algorithm, and we have our list. We have the Hot 25 list, tentative name now.
Nice. I like it. And, for those who are interested, again, like whether you're an investor or a startup founder or CEO, you definitely need to be subscribed to Compass. It's extremely affordable for everything you get. For those who are interested, go to lifesciencemarketresearch.com/compass, or just go to lifesciencemarketresearch.com and you can find it under one of the tabs, under the market intelligence.
Market intel, yeah.
But so your top three that got listed, one was Histosonics, which did a great job. They just got acquired. Their thing was about redefining tumor therapy using histotripsy. It's one of those things in medtech that when you see it, it's literally like magic. Essentially, it's these little bubbles that go and just break up tumors. You had Care Syntax, which is really sharpening surgical decision-making using AI. Bjorn and team are doing a great job over there. Really interesting product. And then the surprise one, not trying to throw some shade here, but just, was CMR Surgical on the robotics side. And the reason why I was kind of like interested in that one was like, CMR's kind of had a tough route. I'm cheering for them, but like, they've raised over $1 billion. And, they've had to like do a lot of changes in the organization. It seems like they're kind of getting things more aligned right now. But, my concerns is that, if you have a product that is just going to directly compete against Intuitive, right? If it was against J, Medtronic, all these other companies, like maybe I'd say like, okay, there's a chance. But like when you're going up directly hand-to-hand combat with Intuitive, I just don't see that ending very well.
Yeah, it's interesting. The score itself isn't indicative of a potential acquisition in the horizon of the company or anything like that. Although, we've played with the algorithm a bit, it has had some interesting predictive capabilities. We were scoring Organox. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Organox, who was acquired by Terumo. We're going to talk about that deal a little bit while we were preparing for different market dives that I was going to be conducting at LSI Europe. And they basically were almost up there with these guys in the top list of 25 companies. And then a few weeks later, they actually end up getting acquired, which, I don't know if that says anything, but we're looking at this scoring metric. I think CMR has a compelling product, and I don't disagree with you that the market opportunity is a little more challenging there. But I think they've got a lot of strong players on team supporting them. And so that's kind of, I believe, where their strength is coming from with the ranking here. Team out of it. Hopefully they succeed in battling Intuitive. Maybe they come up with the tactics and strategies.
We'll see. I mean, I want to be wrong in this, but if I was putting my bets, that is not where I would put it.
Sure.
But again, like, I want to see healthy competition. I wish CMR the best of luck. I want to see them succeed and make some traction, but we'll see. It's a tough hill they're going to have to climb, you know?
Right.
But anyways, getting on to the M&A activity. So let's start off with the first one, Olympus and Revival Healthcare. So Olympus essentially formed a build-to-buy venture with Revival Healthcare over with a managing partner, Rick Anderson and his team. So essentially they developed a GI robotic endoluminal platform under the name Swan Endosurgical, with Olympus taking a significant equity stake and also supplying the visualization and endoscopy technology, which is what they're really known for. So Olympus committed an initial combined investment about $65 million, which escalated to about $458 million if development milestones are met. Yeah. And Olympus retains a predetermined option to acquire the startup outright. I think it's a pretty interesting textbook build-to-buy move. And it kind of shows that Olympus isn't just dipping a toe into the space. They're really locking arms with Revival to develop the system. And I think that, this investment that's like 65 mil that can easily balloon up to over $500 million. This is a signal that they're not going to just sit back and let Intuitive or Medtronic own the space. And it's very interesting to see this because, when you think about on the M&A side, like Boston Scientific, their M&A department is being extremely active in this area. So this is a very interesting thing to see. I mean, what's your take on it, Nick?
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting deal. I think it's very smart, well planned. If we kind of zoom out a little bit and look at what happened with Intuitive versus like Medtronic and J&J in the traditional laparoscopy surgical devices space, Intuitive is basically forced. I feel like they forced these other companies to build robots because they make a lot of money on the consumable products. And so J&J, Medtronic, seeing some hurt on their endosurgical tools portfolios, you see Intuitive is now the leader there. Olympus, I think, is trying to preempt that in the endoscopy space and not lose their lunch money, where they've built this empire as a leading provider of endoscopy solutions. They're reading the wind, they're reading the tea leaves, whatever sort of predictive strategic planning they're doing. They realize that if they make a move here now, it'll be very good for their business long term if everything works out and those milestones are hit.
And we'll see. It'll be interesting. I think I like this build-to-buy approach, especially when robotics. And the main reason is that like robotics is just like, it's really hard and it's really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing this is a little bit more inspiring for other potential robotic companies. It's like, I feel like medical robotics, or not even medical, surgical robotics especially, although this would be more medical robot, but okay, robots in medtech, okay? Yeah. It's almost similar to like when biotech is developing some new kind of like targeted therapy. It's just like the clinical phases to run them through cost so much money that at some point, like you just have to get acquired. Like you just have to, because you know, otherwise they're not going to see the light of day. I feel like robotics to a certain extent, it's not that extreme, but like you just need a lot of money and capital. And so I don't know, like I kind of hope that I see other strategics like a J&J, like Medtronic, etc., start to do this, which is rather than build it out themselves, like seed and fund a company with a build to buy option. I feel like that's the way to go. Not to knock on anybody, but like I feel like I've been hearing about Otava for like years now, and I haven't seen anything. Meanwhile, like you look at like the team over at Mandera, they have a commercial product within a few years, and they have a robot. You know, like, yeah, it's not competitive to Otava. But still,
yeah, it does. You know, I read an interesting article by Steve Bell on this deal, and it does, to your point, highlight and concur with the fact that it takes about $500 million to bring a robotic company to the commercial stage. So here we have it. Here's some validation of what it takes to bring a robot to the market today. So, you know, we've seen CMR Surgical do what, 1.2 billion, and you know, it's not cheap. But I do like this deal. I do think it's really interesting. It's definitely a highlight for August.
So we'll see how that goes down. Now, next one, super interesting one. I really like this deal. Thermo acquiring Organox for $1.5 billion. So Terumo signed this definitive deal or agreement to acquire Organox, which is a UK firm specializing in normothermic machine perfusion for organ preservation. I'm going to get to that in a moment.
Right.
As to what that means. Approximately $1.5 billion, which makes Organox a wholly owned subsidiary. Move marks Terumo's strategic entry into the organ transplantation field, aiming to improve organ utilization, especially marginal donor organs, strengthen post-transplant outcomes, and leverage its global infrastructure to scale tech. Simply put, Organox developed a system where, one of the problems is that a lot of times when you're doing an organ transplant, an organ will get discarded because you have to keep the tissue healthy. So they use a perfusion technology to essentially take an organ, and I think their use case was liver. They hook it up to this machine. The organ does not know it has been removed out of the body. This machine essentially keeps this organ alive and functioning as it gets transferred over for a transplant. That's like magic to me.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's amazing.
It is, yeah. Especially when you look at what's the standard of care today, I believe, is just putting them on ice. So you have...
Yeah, just putting them on ice and transferring them.
Yeah. So you lose a ton of these already extremely rare organs. I believe they're targeting liver transplantation first. Already extremely rare. And the standard of getting it from, the donor to the recipient is putting it on ice and flying it, carting it, however you do it. And you have a massive loss of viable donor organs, which is a shame. So this is awesome. It's a really interesting move. There's some synergies with what Terumo already does in this, like what's called perfusion or
Organox. And I would say Organox it just feels like it's sci-fi, right? Like if you go on YouTube and look at this thing, they take a liver and hook this thing up to this machine,
right?
And the liver is just like functioning like it never left the body.
Right.
That's amazing.
It's pretty cool, and Terumo is obviously betting big on it, right? They think there's a huge opportunity here because, to my understanding, there's not a lot of competitive technology in this space right now. As we said, standard of care, putting it on ice. So, going to be very interesting to see how this goes for Terumo.
Yeah. So we'll be able to follow that and see what Terumo does with it. But congrats to Terumo. Congrats to the Organox team. Really, really exciting to see that.
Yeah, I was just looking up the score we gave it here. They're coming back to that Compass score again, name pending, and it's pretty high. So it's out of 100. And I would say with this scoring system of ours right now, anything above, let's say like 65 is actually pretty solid. It's like a pretty solid score. There's no perfect company. And Organox has an 83, which is really
that was pre-acquisition.
That was pre-acquisition, yeah.
So had you been using Compass, you would have known that this was going to happen.
I mean, once we deploy it in Compass, once it's fully there later this year, absolutely, you're going to be able to hopefully validate some assumptions you have on companies when you're betting in medtech.
Yeah, tell Scott and Henry and team to get this thing through. I want to start using this thing.
We're getting there. We're getting close.
You know what I think we need to do is just use this podcast as a way to put pressure. So like you're just gonna like share some things that you guys are working on, and we're just gonna like
influence LSI's business.
Yeah, you use this show as like positive propaganda to get like products that we really want.
I'll let you do that. I report to Scott, so I'll let it come from a friendly voice outside.
I will gladly pair that for you. All right, so moving on, August deals. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 really cool deals to start on. So the first one was an exciting one because it's from the ophthalmology space. We don't see much there. So this was Alcon's, I believe, second acquisition of the year, and it was a pretty big one, which is $1.5 billion to pick up Star Surgical, spelled STAAR, essentially double down on implantable lenses. So the technology was the implantable Collamer lenses for refractive surgery. And this really strengthens its IOL market presence in a $4.7 billion space. And it seems like it's got solid recurring revenue for it. What did you think about this acquisition?
Yeah, I think it's, smart. They picked up a company that's doing quite well. As you said, it complements a very large market already, $4.7 billion, nothing to turn your nose at. And when you take out a potential competitor and add them to your portfolio, I think overall you're going to just see your own market share grow there. So I like it. I think it's interesting to see 2 acquisitions from Alcon of all companies. I feel like when we talk about MedTech M&A day in and day out, you hear a lot of the same names. And here we go. We have Alcon of all companies making two very interesting acquisitions. The other one being Lensar, which was a surgical robot for the ophthalmology space. So it's nice. It's another $1.5 billion acquisition going on there. And keen to see what Alcon's next move is.
Yeah, I mean, in that same space, I mean, we have Foresight Robotics, which is a ophthalmology robotic platform. They raised $125 million. There's a few other really interesting robotic platforms in the space, but it seems like ophthalmology, I feel like, has always been kind of quiet. I don't hear much, but like in the last year, I think with this, ever since this Alcon acquisition happened, something's going on in the ophthalmology market that's definitely worth like kind of following along.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at just like global procedure volumes for ophthalmic surgeries, I believe it ranks number 5th or 6th amongst the categories of procedures that we follow here at LSI. So, and it's not slowing down. People are getting older. They're going to need ophthalmic surgery. Alcon's onto something, right? They're doing their...
Yeah, no, most definitely. Deal number 2, Orchestra Biomed's financing. So $111 million raise from backing from Medtronic and Ligand. Feels like it's more than just like validation. It's really alignment. So Orchestra's hypertension and coronary solutions are going after massive populations, about 150 million people with hypertension, 40 million with CAD. So if they hit clinical and commercial milestones, definitely going to be on a rocket. Thoughts on that deal, Nick?
Yeah, I really like their portfolio. They have 2 really interesting solutions. So they have a neuromodulation device, effectively a neuromodulation device for hypertension. And we've seen a lot of interesting news as it pertains to devices being used to treat hypertension from Medtronic, as well as from, I'm blanking here. They have the Paradiso system. I remember the company, Otsuka bought them, starts with Record Medical. There we go. Just had to turn the gears a little bit. Record Medical has also this device used to ablate and control hypertension, just like Medtronic. So we're starting to see devices come in to this big market opportunity of hypertension. They're going to start with the patients that can't be managed today with medication. But you and I have talked at length over a number of different deals and companies we like that are using medtech to solve chronic health problems as an alternative to pharmaceuticals. So I love that. And then I also believe that Orchestra has a drug-coated balloon. They have another cardiovascular device, which is impressive. So they have a really cool portfolio of solutions, really keen on that neuromodulation device, though.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I don't follow Orchestra so closely, but like after hearing this news from LSI, I was kind of like, okay, I should follow along a bit more. I always hear about them, but I never like follow them along too closely.
LSI alumni. I believe David led a panel at LSI Europe this year.
Yeah, that's correct. All right, on to deal number 3, Ultrahuman Series C. So this was an interesting one. So essentially they raised not 10, not 20, but 55 million to fuel their AI-driven Echo platform. So essentially this fits perfectly into the surge we're seeing in cardiovascular diagnostics. So sort of non-invasive, scalable, and tuned for earlier, more accurate detection. It's a sweet spot in digital health. By the time this episode is out, we will have passed it, but today we're recording on September 29th, which is World Heart Day. So interesting one to cover. Yeah, I think like there's this like growing trend in terms of funding these digital cardiology platforms and devices. Mm-hmm. I think the key here is like better detection and everything. So what do you think about these guys? Like what makes these guys essentially different from anybody else?
What makes them different from everybody else? I would say that they're probably just further along is the thing that stands out to me. They're further along with where they're at in terms of their milestones. That's going to get attention from investors and support. I think they're playing in the right space, echocardiography, any sort of play where you're taking artificial intelligence and combining it with traditional imaging, which is already being done, is a well-validated approach. You know, if we take a look at all of the FDA approved AI solutions today, I believe it's like 80% of them are in radiology. And then that next big bucket of companies that have been approved with AI solutions is going to be in cardiovascular. It's the next race to be in is AI and cardiovascular imaging. So it's a strong, proven use case. Very keen to see, where they're going. As we mentioned here in our little analysis, it's in the digital health space. It's a fast-growing medtech segment, and they're targeting cardiac care. Cardiovascular companies continue to be strong ones to bet on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because like the other, we had them on the program earlier this month, which was Echo IQ. That's another like AI echo company. So definitely, there's not just one like company in this space. It'll be interesting to see like how each of them sort of position themselves and obviously get like traction within each respective market,
Definitely. And I see, our next deal here is also cardiovascular.
Another heart deal. Yeah, another heart deal.
Yeah.
So the long-awaited IPO for Heartflow finally happened. So they raised about $316.7 million. So Heartflow essentially positioning itself as the frontline filter for cath lab referrals. And if they reduce unnecessary interventions for the roughly 5.5 million diagnostic procedures every year, it's a huge value add for both payers and providers. I've heard really good things about their tech. It'll be interesting to see how they perform because, once you go from being a private company to a public company, a lot of things change, especially on the commercial side, for better or for worse,
Yeah, we did do a bit of an IPO analysis for the numbers back in August, I believe. And overall, the IPOs, there's more IPOs happening, and Heartflow being one of them. Some are doing really well. I believe Heartflow actually is, one of those.
They're up year to date right now. They're up 20%. So done well.
It's always a good sign. Very valid. It's market validating, or at least investor validating in that sense. And yeah, I think it's a really cool technology. Having seen what's required to just even get an intervention performed, especially on older patients, if you can take it and do it non-invasively, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then, by the way, Nick and I are not financial advisors. We should not buy stocks based on our thoughts on any of this.
Or compass
do
board.
on a podcast.
Do not use the compass board.
Don't do any of that. Don't do any of that. Do your own research.
No.
Don't listen to us. So
MedTech a lot.
We just really like MedTech a lot. But if you want to look up Heartflow, the stock ticker is HTFL. So, all right, now on to September highlights. So first, you and the team are making a triumphant return back from LSI Europe. You guys released your market intel picks for innovators to watch. So tell us who those are. Maybe do you have a favorite?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did have I believe this is our fourth LSI Europe. We returned to the UK. It was great. The food was terrific. Probably my favorite food of all of the LSI Europe events. Although that's not why we go. It's just a bonus. The real reason we go is to, see our friends in industry, talk about the future of this industry and where we're going, how we can all get there together. And as a bonus to all of that, we get to hear from I think it was 200 plus innovators and what they're working on. So starting this year, we started making some analyst picks here. Again, this is not any type of advice. It's just us looking at companies and saying, wow, we really like what they're doing. We think there's an opportunity here. Let's give them a shout out. So the companies that we ended up picking from that 200 plus selection of presenters are Dell MedTech. That's from Dr. Stephen Mickelson. He's the rock star in PFA, alternative energy-based solutions for cardiovascular AFib treatment. He was behind Farapulse, which was acquired by Boston Scientific. Had a really successful, and I believe he's still involved with Field Medical, who's raised a ton of money this year. He's with Atraverse, another cardiovascular company, and he presented for the first time his new company, Dell MedTech, at LSI Europe. They are specifically taking that non-thermal energy ablation approach outside of the heart. So really excited to see what comes next from him. I don't know, Omar, if you've had a chance to take a look or hear about what he's working on.
Not much. And by the way, let me make a comment. Is if you go to Dell MedTech's website, you will notice that it is, let me confirm this, that I believe they have it set up where it's like in stealth mode.
Yeah.
And people know that like I have a thing about that. Actually, yeah, right now the website doesn't even work. I think what I found on Google just shows it says stealth mode. That being said, here's what you have to kind of keep in mind about this is that when you look at Dr. Mickelson's background, okay, he's had Field Medical, Atraverse, like these really successful companies. He's a thought leader in the pulse field ablation space. This is one of the people where like he can say, I'm in stealth mode, and it's going to garner interest because he's had that track record.
Yeah.
And this is a message to all the founders out there who they're first-time founders, their first medtech companies, and they think it's like a really cool thing and smart to say, I'm in stealth. It's not. It's a terrible idea. So that being said, I'm really excited to see what Dell MedTech is going to be doing. And, Dr. Mickelson, he and I are connected on LinkedIn. If you're listening, we should have you on the show sometime.
Definitely. I would love to hear more from him. And I'm excited. I didn't get a chance to catch his presentation, but we'll be able to watch it in Compass here once it's all been edited and put together. I'll just briefly touch on a couple of the other companies we highlighted, as well as my favorite, if I had to pick a favorite. May Health, who is in the women's health space. They have an energy-based treatment for PCOS. Inflow Medical, they have let's call it like a next generation extracorporeal membrane solution, which is, I watched their presentation. I just happened to be in there.
It was ECMO, right?
Yeah, ECMO. So
ECMO's cool.
They had a solution that really intrigued me. I really liked what I saw in that presentation. Nyxoah, they are doing neuromodulation.
Obstructive sleep apnea, right?
Yep.
So that's pretty cool.
And then Arc Medical, who has a AI-based solution for managing feeding and nutrition in ICU patients. Really, really interesting clinical data coming out of that company. So those are our top 5. If the analyst team was in charge of picking their favorites, and then mine being Inflow Medical, I was really blown away with what I saw them working on.
Yeah, I'm just learning about them through you, and so I'm going to definitely check that out. I've always found like ECMO to be fascinating technology.
Yeah.
And again, like ECMO is another great example of like when you see it working, it's like magic,
Mm-hmm.
So really cool stuff. So a couple other things from LSI Europe. One is the pub trivia at LSI 25 that was sponsored by ProLucid, and it was hosted by our very own Nick Talamantes at the Red Bar. Tell us about that. What was that like?
Yeah, I'm finding that if I can't hack it in medtech, I'll maybe hit up Drew Carey if he's looking for a protege in the game show, business. That might be a promising alternative career for me. But no, we were in London. We had to do something. We wanted to do something fun, and that, location, fun, put those things together. Pub trivia. Our good friends at ProLucid, they were gracious enough to sponsor the event, and we had an interesting time and fun time doing some medtech trivia, some UK-based trivia, as well as some Canadian trivia for our, in honor of our sponsors. And it looked like it was well received. So I would expect if you're going to be at LSI USA to keep your eyes peeled and your schedule open one of the evenings for some more trivia fun at the bar.
I'm going to throw my name in. I know that LSI likes to have me every now and then for like for firesides and panels, but I can be a pretty damn good MC host for some of these things. So
coming for my job is that what's
going on
here?
I'm just saying whatever breadcrumbs and scraps are left over from the throne, like I'll take them.
Maybe we'll look at giving it a try. Maybe we can like co-host it or something. Sponsored by the State of MedTech this month in MedTech.
There we go. Yeah. You know what? We should this month in MedTech. We should do an activation.
Okay.
I say the activation is at the lobby bar with Dave Uffer. That would be the best. The best. Shout out to Dave Uffer. We love him. He's the best. All right, and the last thing was tell us, because again, I couldn't be there, so I'm vicariously living through these experiences. But robotics market dive. So essentially, you focused on cardiovascular robotics, which was also led by you in the Compass Lounge. What was that about?
Yeah. So we do monthly webinars here at LSI, hosted by yours truly, where we talk about specific markets. And for the first time, we did a live one. So we will definitely be doing this robotics market dive over a webinar again in the near future. But we did it live to a packed house, which was awesome to see. It was packed on the last day, which was really, people kind of start to trickle out after, day 2, day 3, it's a little lighter, but people showed up. They were curious to hear what LSI has to say on the robotic space. And I got asked a lot of really good questions, had some really interesting conversations post market dive, and be curious to hear, more feedback from people once they maybe catch it over a webinar. So basically, we just did presentations on various device markets throughout the event in case you were looking for something insights driven, something with some live data visualizations. It's just an alternative to panels and workshops that we have running at the event, hosted by, again, me. And we have some fun talking about various markets. Robotics was one we've been circling the drain on for a while, and how to approach it, how to tackle it, because I think on this podcast, I've not been shy about sharing that in some places, I don't feel like robotics is really adding any clinical benefit, but there are other more emerging.
Such as, wait, don't be coy. Such as, which area?
Yeah, I would say like orthopedics. Orthopedics is really what begs the question of like, why?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of the robotic platforms that I've seen come out in recent years have just been like slight incremental improvements. This is why, like me personally, I'm a big fan of like what Stuart Simpson and Think Surgical.
Yes, exactly.
With the T-Mini.
Yeah, and that's not to like bash on it as a whole. It's just right now,
we can bash on it as a whole. That's fine. It's tiny incremental improvements, which made sense at a time when you can make an incremental improvement to a platform and then somebody buys you up. It doesn't make sense in 2025. Yeah. Again, shout out to Stuart Simpson and his team. Because again, like Stuart went into that company and they had 2 products, and he essentially shelved one of them and said, "We're going all in on T-Mini." That takes, it takes some serious cojones.
I think that's make or break for orthopedic robots. Really is, the implant game is the other kind of piece there with orthopedics.
Totally. So it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. So moving on, sort of rounding the corner here. Looks like fundraising is starting to cool, but M&A and large deals keep happening. So 55 deals in July, 33 in August, 25 in September. Maybe it's just the after effects of European summer in August happening. We'll see. So, but this is not just industry agnostic. So cross-industry data that the trusted market intel team at LSI found essentially suggested that early ticket fundraising is getting harder to close. And then on M&A side, so before we jump onto the M&A, I'm wondering, I believe that a lot of capital is deployed, again, 2020, 2021, a massive amount across all venture. Exits were depressed. Lena Khan over the FTC was really, kind of put a lot of cold water in the M&A market. So as a result of that, LPs are being hypercritical of their venture funds. And these venture funds are now being hypercritical of the investments they're making. So as John Norris's HSBC report showed, that the amount of funding from 2023 to 2024 went up like 28%. Yeah, I think it was like 47 billion to like 58 billion, something like that. I'm give or take, or 43 billion. I can't remember the numbers. It's about 28%. But the number of deals being funded was like less than 2%.
Yeah.
Or the number, in terms of the number of deals from 2023 to 2024, it went up by 2%. So like there's more money for like less and less deals out there. And so now I'm just worried, how do these companies, when, they go to LSI and stuff, how do they compete for capital? How do they raise money at this point? This is the case. And maybe are these strategic partnerships and build to buy pathways maybe the new model?
Yeah, I think that there might need to be some innovation in how this happens because healthcare requires innovation. And if the early stage companies
money.
and if the early stage companies aren't getting it, we're going to have a complete slowdown in that. So, I would love to see more build to buys, but I think that there's a lot of those are difficult deals to structure, I imagine, and put together, versus like betting on various early stage companies based off of your own internal criteria. Curious to see how the end of the year shapes up. I know I want to ask you your prediction for, how the end of the year is going to wrap up for the industry overall, if it's going to pick back up, or do you hear or feel that maybe we're seeing a bit of a slowdown? But overall, like, just to kind of zoom out again, it's been a really good year. You shared some great stats about 2023 to 2024, and based off of our own comparisons from 2024 to 2025, it's been a great year, even for the early stage fundraising. So it just kind of caught our eye as we do our weekly deal analysis that September was a slower month, and August was pretty slow compared to July. So looking at where the data is going to go, is that going to continue, or is this just a summer slump? As you said, the Europeans are on vacation. I took a vacation. Maybe everybody's just resting up to finish the year strong here.
Yeah, I think, first of all, just some mental note, I need to be better about my planning, because I feel like August is just every year, no matter where I'm working or now, I'm running my own business, it's just a slow month. I feel like the smart thing to do is just like work your butt off at the end of July, and then take like a solid, meaningful vacation in August. That's what I recommend. I don't know, just anecdotally, a few weeks ago, I was invited to Orange County Business Journal's Innovator Awards by Ray Cohen, who was giving the keynote. And, so shout out to Uncle Ray for the invite. I had a great time. I'm very grateful for the friendship with him. But I was really inspired coming out of that, because I can't remember, but it was more than a couple, but many of the innovators who were nominated and the ones who won were coming out of MedTech.
Yeah.
And so that's just in one corner of the world, but it was inspiring to see that. I feel like overall in the zeitgeist, there's a strong public interest in health and healthcare more than ever. And I think that's going to leak over into MedTech. I think about companies like Aqua Medical as an example. I'll think of a few more, but essentially who are using devices and procedures to intervene and solve, issues that have been traditionally treated by pharmaceutical approaches, mm-hmm. right? And so I think that MedTech, we're going to be entering our golden age, because the consumers are going to demand device interventions and to move away from pharmaceuticals. And so that kind of makes me hopeful. Now, will that translate to more traction and momentum in the MedTech space? I hope so. I think we should all be thanking, Scott Pantel and the team over at LSI, because, thanks to the events you guys put on, that brings a tremendous amount of global awareness to the industry, brings new money in, etc. We try and do that in our own way here on State of MedTech, and so hopefully we see this trend continue. And I think that having more people like Ray Cohen active, Ray Cohen's made more money than he needs. He can just be sitting on a beach somewhere chilling, but he's still working. I lost count, but I think he's on 7 or 8 boards at this point. He plays a very active role, and so having more people like him who have built those relationships, know what the strategics wants, know what the markets want, and to sort of guide and mentor these startups to an acquisition, all those factors coming into play will help. So overall, I'm hopeful. Will funding pick up? I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. It's just tough. It's really, you know what? I'll say this. I don't think it's going to take a nosedive.
Yeah.
I don't see any indication of that. Now, will it pick up? I think so. I think that from a macroeconomic standpoint, things that are going on with the Fed, I feel like capital is going to start flowing more into MedTech. We just got to get through this first year.
You brought up an interesting point with Ray Cohen joining a board, and this isn't a plug for us, but I'd be curious, Omar, if how does an early stage company get somebody like a Ray Cohen on their board? Is it just grinding the conference circuit in general? Like, do you have any insights there?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think like getting somebody on your board, it's going to come down to a few things. Like obviously the equity package, all those things that's going to make that person's time worth it, right?
Yeah.
You know, and what I would compare this to is like, think about on Shark Tank. When somebody goes on and pitches Shark Tank and they're like, we want X amount for 5%, most of the sharks will say like, you know, that's not enough for me to get excited about because I'm going to put in work and everything. I need to feel like really like part of the company and stuff. So that's one side of it, right? Not saying you should give up 5% of your company. The Shark Tank's different, different than like MedTech. But the other side of it, I think, is that, you know, you need to do a lot of research and you need to understand, like, if you're going to pick, like I've had founders come up to me multiple times because Ray's been on the show multiple times, say, oh, can you make an introduction to Ray Cohen? And a lot of times I have to say no because I'm like, that, like, I don't want to speak on behalf of Ray. I was like, but I don't think your company makes sense for the kind of things that he's interested in.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, you have to also think about what is this person done in their past? What kind of investments have they made? What kind of companies have they managed? Because that's going to dictate whether you can get that person on your board. And you have to also keep in mind, like getting somebody on the board, you want somebody who's going to be able to like understand your business pretty quickly and make like good recommendations as to what you should do to gain traction, to put yourself up for an acquisition, etc. And so all those things matter. And at the end of the day, at the same time, and again, we do this for our clients over at MarketCraft, you have to be marketing yourself on a consistent basis. You have to be putting out content. You have to be finding ways to get attention. You can't limit it to, like, if you limit it just to going to conferences and then every now and then when you have a press release, like you're going to lose, you know? Yeah. So you have to rise to the level of awareness for the people that you want to be investors and board members and everything. But yeah, again, like it's, I should do an episode about that, which
I would love to see that because I'm just thinking, we had a conversation with our developers today about, you know, this new Compass development that we're working on. And we were just talking to ourselves about like, how do we bridge this gap with companies that, like you say, they put out a press release maybe once a year about what they're working on. You maybe see them at conferences. Yeah. It's like, is this company alive? Are they thriving? Are they struggling? Like,
yeah, you can't tell.
I would love to know more about this, but obviously
the simplest thing, Nick, is like, this is why they have to be creating content on a continuous basis on LinkedIn at the minimum to show like adoption happening in real time, customers potentially using, even if they're pre-commercial. You know, there's plenty of companies we worked with that are pre-commercial that are able to like show traction and everything. And, you know, again, like the name of the game is how do you get attention, how do you sustain attention, and then how do you convert that into like investment, adoption, etc. Like it's a simple process, but it's not easy. It's like working out, like staying in good shape, staying in good health. It's like, don't eat a lot and work out. It's like simple, but not easy advice to follow. So
definitely do a crash course. I'd be curious.
I will do that. I want to put it to you to talk to your boss to do a partnered webinar on this topic.
All right, like pre LSI content or pre LSI.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right, I'll put it to him.
I put on a good show. I put a damn good show for live stream. All right, continuing on. All right, M&A rush continues. Let's roll through this real quick. B. Braun acquires True Digital Surgery. Edwards acquires Vectorious. Boston Scientific acquires assets from Elucia. GE Healthcare acquires Icometrics, and High Ridge Medical acquires assets from Acellus. Yeah. So interesting. So of those, any of those stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that could be said here, and this is maybe the hazard of combining 2 months of this month of MedTech into one episode here. It's just too much information to chew through. But you know, it's an interesting, I guess, adjacency to what's going on with fundraising, where we are seeing this like cooling off of early stage fundraising. I would say the later stage rounds, those remain healthy. We're still seeing those come through. Investors are doubling down on their investments and hopefully building a company up to where it can become an M&A target, because man, like M&As just keep going. Like it's crazy. I believe all of these were from this month. So of the 25 deals that we tracked in Compass this month, that 5 of them, 6 of them are M&As. So that's impressive. It's great to see that. I know that is a sign of industry health, and it shows that, yeah, maybe there's a bit of a slowdown for the early stage. Hopefully that logjam clears up and early stage companies start getting the help that they need, the capital that they need. But companies are buying. Edwards, that's a really cool acquisition, and it's a really interesting one that has a lot of synergies with their structural heart business. Boston Scientific, that acquisition was very competitive to Medtronic. They basically acquired a technology, a biomaterial that will make their implantable devices more competitive to Medtronic. Ebron, they acquired a company that they had been working with for about 5 years on the development of their own surgical imaging equipment. So they just tucked them in after working with them for a number of years. GE, I believe that's an AI asset that was bought purchased. And then High Ridge Medical, which is a smaller company, buying assets from a larger company, but building out that portfolio of commercial products.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is Acellus, are they technically bigger than High Ridge?
I think they are, yeah. I off the top of my head, I know this is a quick chat GPT question of, but I believe so. I believe Acellus looks like they're divesting some of their portfolio to a smaller company that's more focused on those assets.
They've been around. Acellus has been around longer, for sure. Yeah, that I know. But I think it's interesting. I mean, Eric Majors over there at High Ridge, who's had like phenomenal success. He's the one who started K2M with his brother. But what I think is really interesting is, like High Ridge, I mean, they had that. Most recently, they had another like announcement of a partnership with Pathkeeper, which is a really cool company founded by Arez Lampert, who I believe is LSI alum. I think so. But yeah, High Ridge has been doing some really interesting things. I mean, they're a small company, but they're positioned and kind of market themselves very much like a strategic one, which is interesting,
Yeah. Well, we saw something like this, I believe, last time we recorded when we talked about the Waters BD deal, where it's like, I have never heard of this company, but they're buying.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's interesting. One company needs to divest assets to focus on other high growth opportunities within their organization. The other one sees a way to take those assets and grow their own organization.
Right. And I think, we saw this happen back in, I think it was in the 90s. Baxter could have been like the largest med device company by far. They divested and spun out Edwards. I think Cardinal Health. And I feel like there's another company, but yeah, like Baxter's could have been huge, but they spun out a bunch of companies. And so I don't know. It's interesting to see this. I think it's a good sign. I like seeing strategic spin out these companies because, again, like I don't want to see a world where we keep growing and then like at the end of the day it's like J&J, Stryker, Medtronic,
right?
Intuitive, and they just like they all buy. Yeah, we need some mid cap players that are making acquisitions and stuff,
Definitely.
But all right, so continuing on, so let's go through some other interesting news. One which came on my radar was Stryker and Siemens essentially striking a deal on neurosurgical robots. So this collaboration will essentially combine Siemens' strength in robotics and image-guided therapy, which they have with the Corindus robot, with Stryker's expertise in neurovascular devices. So together, they're working on system design, imaging navigation, device implant integration, optimizing procedural workflows. So their goals are going to be speeding up treatments, especially in urgent ischemic strokes, increasing precision, reducing the complexity of handling multiple tools and systems during surgery, and then improving patient outcomes in both elective and emergency neurovascular cases. I thought it was really interesting because I feel like I'm seeing more and more in the stroke space, this concept of like, so time is brain, so like intervening as quickly as possible. So a couple of companies are working on solutions for this in the robotics space. One is Remedy Robotics, which is really interesting. The other one is Navigantis. And then just on the automatic mapping of like cerebral vasculature, you have a company like Neurosignal, another LSI alumni that's using the robotic system for transcranial Doppler. So I think it's this stroke space is really, really interesting. And I think that the future of it is not going to be defined purely by a single technology. It's going to be sort of built through a collaboration across like imaging, robotics, hemodynamics. And so it's kind of inspiring to see a lot of players do that. Shout out, by the way, to Neurosignal's Robert Hamilton, who wrote a post about this. If you go to his LinkedIn page and scroll and just look for the post that has the Stryker Siemens image, he wrote a really nice post about this concept on there.
Yeah, we have a forthcoming post as well on this deal for the numbers. Probably will be out by the time this video gets published, where we took a look at the market opportunity, the numbers behind it. I'm sure I've said it before here. If not here, I definitely said it in our robotics market dive. I'm really big on robotics in neurovascular care. And this deal, this partnership, it's validating to the work that the companies like Navigantis and Remedy Robotics are doing. We have here 2 major strategics coming in and saying like, yeah, there's something here. There's an opportunity. But 2, I think the temperature just got turned up a little bit too at the same time, where you have Stryker, who's just been crushing it in the orthopedics robotic space. They're out for they're playing for everything. They're playing for keeps here in stroke. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this materializes, what the platform looks like, what it entails, and looking forward to more news on it.
No, absolutely. On the same path, we have Edwards acquiring Vectorious. Edwards essentially completed the acquisition of the remaining 48% stake in Vectorious, bringing full ownership. The deal values the company at about $497 million. Vectorious makes a miniature battery-free left atrial pressure sensor, or VLAP, for remote monitoring in heart failure patients, aimed at reducing hospitalization and enabling early intervention. Big shout out to Vectorious for great positioning. I'm going to read to you exactly what it says on their website. You land on the website. Okay. It says, where innovation beats, keep track of the heart everywhere, all the time.
I like it.
Everything I need to know about the company is in what, like whoever did the copy knocked it out of the park. More medtech companies need to do that. It was just like nice, clean, simple copy.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And it got them half a billion. Them half a billion.
That's right. It shouldn't take a degree in engineering to understand what a company is working on in the medtech space. Your website is your salesperson. Really like this deal. I think I hinted at what it means. It's, we've again covered in the numbers. What this means is Edwards is looking at heart failure. They've been looking at this space, incrementally, and this is just another play that says we want to be involved here from diagnosis all the way to treatment, because oftentimes a heart failure patient will progress if not, managed properly, to needing a valve placed. My own grandmother, heart failure that was caught late and ultimately resulted in an aortic valve implant. So really, really like it. Great deal here. And I think we can expect to see more moves in the heart failure space from Edwards as they go up against other players like J&J.
Yeah, definitely. And all right, so as we round it out, I'm going to end with, we got 4 deals in September. So first off, Galvanize did a Series C. They're an interesting one to watch. So Galvanize essentially uses pulsed electric field, or PEF. I know what many of you guys are thinking, like for the heart. No, essentially for the lungs and cancer. So it's not just cardiac anymore. So they have backing from Sophie Nova, Intuitive Ventures. Very clear that this is not just a science fiction thing anymore. So essentially they're using PEF in the lungs, right? So I thought that was very interesting. So they raised about 100 mil. Thoughts on this one, Nick?
Really interesting company. I
don't know anybody else doing that.
Yeah.
That's the cool part.
Well, I think that there might be a couple of other players using PFA, and you'll have to forgive me. I'm not an engineer or anything, or a biologist. I'm not too familiar with the difference in PEF and PFA. I believe they have functionally similar mechanisms of action for what they're trying to do, which is get certain cells to be destroyed by selectively versus kind of non-selectively or non-discretely as RF energy would use. I'll be quick here. I think this is interesting. I think what stands out about this deal is the backing from Intuitive, as well as just seeing Sofinova. They also invest in great companies, so that got our attention. And it's a mega deal, $100 million. These guys are going to go commercial if they aren't already, and forgive me off the top of my head, and go far. Potentially do an acquisition there. Intuitive has Ion, and now you have...
I was just gonna say, I was like, if there's an acquisition, this one makes a lot of sense for Intuitive.
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense for them. All right, deal 2, Vicentra, which has Kaleido, did a Series D. This one's interesting. So, the diabetes tech space is like extremely competitive, but Vicentra is like staying competitive with everybody else. They have the Kaleido pump, which is like super sleek, user friendly. If you go to their website, it feels like an Apple product. So like one of their big things is that you can customize and get like your own colors for like, your diabetes insulin pump. And I thought that was like really interesting. So they raised $85 million. It just shows that they're keeping up momentum there. Again, I feel like right up there with insulin pumps is like continuous glucose monitors. So like those are the two like super competitive, like consumer medical device like areas. I think like right below that would be like anything sleep apnea related. But I
was gonna say I this is actually a presentation I did also catch at LSI Europe. They presented shortly, this deal happened a couple weeks before LSI Europe, and the backstory is behind this raise is they're basically tapped out on commercial capacity. They have a wait list in Europe for people who want these products. So they've developed really compelling. They're already raising another round. Like this 85 million's accounted for, and they're looking to do, I believe, a follow-on round to help bridge those commercialization gaps that they have right now. So company's doing great. Love to see it.
That's amazing. So like, wow, I had no idea. So essentially they have a wait list. So they're already raising around just to their issue supply.
Yeah, I believe that the next round that they're going to be raising after this 85 million is to help them open and expand production capacity so that they can address their wait list. So that's like you said, it's a competitive industry, so that's a good problem to have for let's call them a newer player in the diabetes space.
Yeah, no, seriously, that's really, you don't hear that very often. We need to see more of those in medtech. So that's fantastic. So congrats to the team over there. Deal number 3 is B. Braun acquiring True Digital Surgery. The amount was undisclosed. So the technology is digital exoscope for reconstructive surgery. The reason why this matters is that B. Braun and TDS have been integrated partners developing advanced surgical visualization solutions for about 5 years. The company was responsible for much of the underlying technology in B. Braun's AOS platform. And the complete integration of TDS represents B. Braun's focus on securing this expertise in an increasingly competitive digital exoscope market. And I'm just going to reference again, when I see TDS, I'm not talking about Trump derangement syndrome. bad abbreviation on that one. But True Digital Surgery, good name. It's a good name.
Yeah.
Bad abbreviation, great name.
Yeah, unfortunate coincidence there for that. But this is cool. I think we talked about it a little bit already, but just one of those sensible like companies have been working together for a number of years. Kind of in line, I don't want to call it a build to buy, but it's more in line with what you were talking about earlier in the podcast today, Omar, which is seeing bigger companies partner with smaller companies, and hey, maybe that turns into an acquisition down the road.
Yeah, hopefully. And I think like maybe, I don't know, I like to believe that a lot of times what you end up seeing in the market, like it just rubs off and start influencing others. So I'm hoping more med tech companies are taking this alternative pathway. And, I think it just makes sense too, right? Like, I don't know, for the BD teams, like maybe it's not an outright acquisition. Sometimes you just have to like place your bets, lead an investment, but like guide that startup is like, hey, look, like we like what you have. here's what you got to do for us to just buy you out completely, right? And if that starts if we start seeing a trend in that, so I'm going to make a prediction, okay? If we start seeing a pattern and trend where more strategics, larger companies, whatever, are not just leading around, but there's like a very public like build to buy approach, it will inspire more investors to put money into medtech.
Yeah,
because we got to reduce these timelines.
Yeah.
Investors can't wait around 10 years for investment to materialize. We got to figure out something about how do we get return on capital within like 3 to 5 years. I think this is a pathway for that.
Definitely.
And rounding out our deals for September, Aerin, AERIN Medical does a Series F. The amount was for $85 million. So they have essentially minimally invasive ENT therapies, which I think is interesting because ENT is often overlooked. Aaron's kind of showing that it's actually a very lucrative vertical. They're minimally invasive treatments for rhinitis and nasal obstruction. Pretty much hit a very large underserved market.
Yeah.
And again, I get another, not as good as Vectorious, but another good website with good copy saying long-lasting relief from nasal airway obstruction and chronic rhinitis is now within reach. Great. I know exactly what you guys do.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, there's a lot of people. I don't know how big the rhinitis market is, but the nasal airway obstruction, because the other option or the other option to fix that is surgery. But it seems like this is sort of a less invasive approach, I believe.
It's an office-based approach, which is compelling to patients. They don't want to have surgery if they don't have to. They can go in and have a quick procedure done in office, almost like an aesthetic surgery where they'll zap something and then you're good to go. I believe it's a fairly large market opportunity, and I'd have to dig into it a little bit more, but I would say it's not extremely competitive. I think that's what's interesting there. So good for them. 85 million, their commercial product. So that's going to accelerate that commercialization and hopefully get their technology into the hands of more people with this problem.
Totally. It'll be an interesting one to watch. All right. So closing notes. Nick, you want to give us some closing thoughts on everything?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Omar, for doing such a lengthy one. We had a bit of catch up here to do. So hopefully it's been good for everybody who's stuck around. Overall, still remaining really optimistic with where things are going. August was a good month. September, there were some interesting deals. That Stryker Siemens partnership, really looking forward to seeing where that goes. Overall, Q3 prediction for myself, I think we might see it hold the course of what we're seeing right now, which is lots of later stage rounds, maybe a bit of a tightening around early stage funding, early ticket funding, and then probably more M&As. I think we just see more buying before the end of the year here. So yeah, it's good to catch up on this and get back into the swing of things.
Totally. And we'll see. Hopefully things really round out well in Q4. And again, I think that, it's going to depend on a lot of things with the markets, with what's happening with the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
And again, we're almost 1 year in with the new administration, so we'll see how things shake out.
Yeah.
But if anything, I'm really looking forward to LSI USA. I'm already got my tickets, but got to book my hotel,
Got to plan your trivia questions with me. We'll
absolutely. And shout out, we got another beautiful edition of the Lens magazine. This handsome gentleman, I know him personally, Tal Wurzel, and Star 51, really exciting fun. So congrats to Tal and Adam.
He's a gym monster. You're seeing him every day at the gym during LSI Europe, 5 a.m. So Tal's grinding.
Tal has the best. He has the best approach to cardio. It is very inspiring. Just get on the machine and watch a movie or something. Yeah. He just grinds it, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Tal is a great founder. For those who don't know, Tal was the founder of Corindus, which got sold to Siemens. Yeah, to Siemens. But the thing that I love about Tal is that, again, similar to Ray, Tal had this great exit. It is north of $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
And he could have hung it up, but he went back into the space to innovate, to work with companies. And so now he's got his fund, Star 51. And so we need more people like that, you know? So he got a taste of massive success and he wants more.
There we go.
But I think at the end of the day,
Industry
because of
needs
people
it.
like, but at the end of the day, because of people like Tal, like patients, they end up benefiting at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So big fan of him. Looking forward to talking to him and Adam on the show sometime soon. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this episode, do us a favor, give it 5 stars, subscribe to the show, forward this on. We do this every month, unless it's August and my wife's, delivering. We do this every single month. So forward this on to your, an investor, a friend. This is how you get a pulse on the industry. Thanks to this partnership between the State of MedTech and LSI. Another episode of This Month in MedTech. I'm your host, Omar Khateeb, joined by our market intel czar, Nick Talamantes. And we'll see you all next time. Thanks for checking out this episode. If you want to do me a big favor and join so many other people who have helped grow this podcast, take a second and look below. If you're on Apple, give us 5 stars and write a short review. If you're on Spotify, just give us 5 stars. And if you're on YouTube, hit the like button. And most importantly, if you can, subscribe. We release so many different episodes that you may miss. Be sure to subscribe and turn your notifications on. You get extra points with me if you subscribe across all 3 channels. Thank you so much. And if you felt like this episode helped you, send this to somebody who would really enjoy and appreciate it. Share and spread the love. We'll see you all next time.